It sounds like you've seen a lot of good shows, dude. Hearing about you standing on stage before shows that you're about to play, picking out seats in the crowd that you've sat in, seems like something that everyone has dreamed about doing. Have you been to the venue where your best show ever was?
No.
Not yet?
Best show is tough. It's a tough thing to say. I'm going to pick one. But obviously I've had shows that were the best in a bunch of different ways, but I'm going to should I bring this up now?
Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Best Show Ever podcast, the podcast where we talk about the best shows that people have ever seen in their lives. I'm your host, Cam Herdt, and man, we are back for not only another episode, but another season. Season 4, first episode. Welcome to it. And we have got just an outstanding guest, a very cool guest for your first guest of season 4, the current drummer of Goose, and just an awesome guy, Cotter Ellis. Man, I got a chance to interview Cotter at Mondegreen over the summer for the Fish Festival. We did it was called Lot Ones, and we did like a hot wings style interview where I was eating hot wings and Cotter was eating hot wings, and I asked him a couple questions, just blatantly ripping off a very successful podcast. But it was live and it was fun. It was at the festival. It was different. It was cool. This is the full enchilada here. This is Cotter's best show ever episode. And man, it's amazing the kind of jam stuff that we get into. This guy, he makes me look like I've never seen jam bands ever in my life. He's bringing up bands that I've never even heard of, and he's seen a bunch of shows of theirs. He is so clearly someone who has just been steeped in it for a long time, steeped in improvisational music, jazz music, jam music, prog music. We cover so much of his sort of background as a music fan. And it lends itself perfectly to the music that he has found himself playing in his career now with Goose. We get into that a little bit. It's just, this interview happened back in November, end of November. And so he's still on this kind of meteoric rise as we speak right now. Like they were just about to play MSG for the Soulshine kind of fundraiser show. And, now they're about to play MSG this summer for their own headlining show. And so, just like it's been fun to watch Goose kind of explode over the last couple of years, it's been fun over the last year to watch Cotter nestle into this role, man, as the drummer of Goose. And he is he's hilarious too. It's a great episode. I don't have to sell you guys on why Cotter is a great episode. Okay. I think everyone here is like, yeah, this is going to be an awesome episode. So here, let me get out of the way. Sit back, relax, enjoy this conversation that I had with Goose's drummer, Cotter Ellis. But first, here's just a little bit of music. Living too fast.
Yeah, dude.
This is great. I made sure I was like super on time for this meeting because last time when I interviewed Rick and Peter, I'm like sitting in my kitchen, like having a cup of coffee, like, man, this is awesome. I'm about to interview Rick and Peter from Goose. It's so sick. And then I got a message from Peter like, hey man, are you going to be on the call? And I'm like, I'm like 10 minutes late to the thing that I scheduled. Huge interview, massive deal. Nice. They're like, oh yeah, all good, man. What's your little fucking show? What's this about to be?
Well, luckily I'm not as big of a star. So I was the one who was late.
Dude, you're a huge star. That's why you were late. You're rolling in. Yeah, you're rolling in like fucking Mick Jagger right now. Well, you said you've been living the dream. Seems like you've been living the dream, dude. It's been a fucking huge year for Cotter Ellis.
For sure.
Stoked that you want to talk about your shows. You've been doing a bunch of sweet shows this year with Goose, but that's not what we're here to talk about.
Great news to me, honestly, but sweet.
We're here to talk about the shows that you have seen. The best shows you've ever seen in your life.
Got it.
And so with that, what's the first concert you ever saw in your life?
I think my dad was a professional musician. So I was always around music and going to shows when I was from when I was a baby. But I think the first show that I ever went to, with the homies was Breaking Benjamin at the
Oh
Worcester
yeah,
Palladium in Mass. Yeah. It's like they had a song on Halo 3, which was sick.
very sick.
And it was like that like butt rock era of
Total like
music.
for the boys butt rock, just dude metal.
Dude, like hard rock, not even metal. That
It's
would
not
be
metal.
it's just like they're like like that kind of that era.
Just like stuff that you would put a high school football highlight tape together to.
For sure, dude.
Like a bunch
100%.
of like 16-year-old angst guys there
Yeah.
at the show.
I was probably
Sick.
like 12. Like first crowd surf. My buddy like touched some girl's butt, which is totally not cool, but we were 12. So like thinking back about it now, it's like some girl got her butt touched by a 12-year-old who thought it was like a rock and roll thing to do.
It's a
It's
major
not
highlight.
okay at all. But it was like all these moments where I was like, it's like the movies, like the 70s movies of guys at a rock show. Anyway, enough
Coming
about
into
sexual
their own.
harassment.
Yeah. No, I mean, like a handful of things were probably not okay at that 12-year-old show. No pun intended. But like yeah, it's the first time you step out of your house and you're not with your folks and you're with your buddies in like kind of like a feral environment, and you're like, what do we do? Especially like at a rock show like that. Did you since your dad was already, what kind of like music did your dad play? And were you kind of comparing that show to what your dad did, or was this just like, I'm gonna go fucking rage?
It was my dad was like he was a Berkeley guy who played like soul music. Like his bands were always like mostly like gospel, like black music was what I was raised on.
Very similar to Breaking Benjamin.
Yeah. So it was basically like, I don't know if it was meant to be like a rebellious thing. I think it was kind of just like what my homies were into and what was like on MTV at the time, back when MTV was like music.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, just the classic like coming of age, going out, being in that crazy rock and roll environment that I had seen only in movies. Because I was like going to like pretty tame shows where people would like sit in a room and listen to the band, like jazz, soul, funk,
Like a
R&B.
review.
Yeah, or just like a real like listening room shit was what I was doing as a kid.
Heady.
And then I always wanted to like
heady.
fucking A, for sure. Like I got raised on really good music, but like kind of like snobs, like
right.
jazz music snobs, which was something I had to like move past. But like the Breaking Benjamin era was like when I started to go to Warped Tour.
Yeah, dude.
Like I had a friend who was a year older who like basically stole his mom's van and drove us all to Mansfield for Warped Tour. And it was the same thing. Just like crazy, like girls having like mud fights.
Yeah, man.
And like it was just like, this is the dream for a 12-year-old.
Ours in Milwaukee was kind of like on the Summerfest grounds, but it was just like in one of the parking lots there. So it's just a cement like parking lot, and kids are just running around like circle pits or just like punching each other in the face.
Yeah.
Like at a like not even at an appropriate show. Like it would be like Reliant K playing Warped Tour.
Yeah,
and kids
dude.
are like, we gotta fucking do a pit.
For sure. Yeah, like I was in the first like huge mosh pit I was in at like the Warped Tour was like a fuckload of people. It was Pepper, which I don't know if you know Pepper, but they were basically like a Hawaiian reggae rock band.
Punk, ska,
yeah,
a little bit, speed punk
stuff.
Yeah, man. Saw Katy Perry at the Warped Tour before she was
Katy
Perry, man. Yeah.
Was it called Katy Perry?
Yeah, she was Katy Perry, but it was like she had like I Kissed a Girl, and I think that was it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was like right before the Gym Class Heroes. You know the lineup.
I do. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Warped Tour was sick. Do you have like a worst show you ever went to? You ever like see something that you were just like, man, that was tough, or like something that might have been your fault? What was the worst show ever?
Well, That's a great question. I hate to say this because I I always said the Disco Biscuits are the worst best band ever
Yes.
because like in the midst of me being a Biscuits fan, which was like probably like 2010, like was when I really started to get into it.
Sure.
Like that was when I started like eating a bunch of drugs, like
Yeah.
good ones, nothing bad,
Yeah.
but
Fun
like
2010 drugs.
psychedelics. Yeah, exactly. Back when drugs were safe.
Okay. It's different now.
Yeah, dude. Uh, yeah, I was doing some fent and going to the biscuit show.
Safe stuff.
uh, so like, I think one of the best shows I ever saw, not that I don't want to jump the gun here, was the Biscuits, and one of the worst shows I ever saw was also the Biscuits.
Man.
And
Yes.
it was just like weird acid trip, like dark, grimy vibes. And like
Yeah.
one of my friends like passed out. Like also, you know, it was like when it was I think we're like I generally had a great time at shows. I feel like there's really not a lot of shows where I've been like I just didn't like that. Unless it was like me being a snob and it was like going to a local show and being like, yeah, this band has some growing to do. I'm gonna leave
Yeah.
early. But
Right.
I've never been to a show where I was like, that sucked. But it was more like I was having a bad trip and it was like
Yeah.
weird vibes and the band wasn't really doing it for me, but I didn't leave. It was just like felt kind of yucky after, which I feel like most Biscuits fans could relate to.
I was just gonna say, like, we've had some pretty big Biscuits fans on the show. We've had members of the Disco Biscuits on the show, and I think that every Disco Biscuits fan is probably like, my best show ever is a Disco Biscuits show. But I've got a couple worst shows ever that are also Biscuit shows. Like even in I think in 2023, I saw two different Biscuit shows, and one of them I was like fucking amazing. And the other one I had to leave early because it was like I was like slammed in there. I felt like I was about to pass out. I wasn't even on any drugs. I was like, I think I gotta go. I think I gotta take off. And that just happens sometimes. Not the band's fault, but
I mean,
people.
the thing that I always said and respected about the Biscuits is like I don't know if I still like believe this fully, but I always was under the impression that the Biscuits were the only true jam band where like they were willing to take risks that no other band would take. And that
Yeah.
means that that means that the consequences could be it's going to be the greatest show or it's going to be like you never know what you're going to get, I guess is what the real consequence of that is like some nights it just seems like they're slopping around, but it's because they're willing to take the chance. And sometimes that leads to shit that other bands wouldn't be able to get to because
Yeah.
they would play it safe and rather have like a solid jam than just like lean into something that's uncomfortable. So I always was like, that was always my like, fuck yeah, Biscuits. Like they're willing to take the chances. They're not scared. Which
That's why people really love them. Because
yeah,
they make really fun choices with every single part of their music. Like they'll make really fun set list choices, or like when they make a new album, they'll make really fun choices on what the story is that's being told or something that are like really silly and fun and only true to them. And like and yeah, so then there are it's the same thing with like bigger jam bands and things like that there's a ton of risk being taken, way more than any other touring act, but then
for sure.
there's yeah, like you said, like a real true risk being taken almost every single night with the Biscuits, like at any show.
They're not ripcording, you know?
No, they're like off and running,
Yeah,
and it's
they're
just
gonna
wherever
lean
they
in.
yeah, super leaning in.
So
Yeah,
it's cool.
man.
I fucking
Yeah, they're
respect that. But yeah, I think like I really I mean, maybe something will pop into my mind later, but I don't think I've ever been to a show where I was just like, this fucking sucks, you know?
yeah.
Generally try to get something good out of the show, even if it's just like being with the homies.
I also am like, I know what I'm at each artist for. Like, I'm not gonna go to see fucking, you know, uh, like an older band and want the same thing out of them that I get out of Goose, that I get out of, you know, King Giz, that I get out of, you know, like I just saw David Gilmour. That was a completely different type of show. Like,
Holy shit, dude.
you know, there's like those are, you got to kind of know what you're going into with
For
every
sure.
show. And I think that sometimes people go to shows and they're like, this is not like my favorite fucking thing that I go to all the time. I'm like, yeah, it's because it's not.
Yeah, for
Different.
sure.
It's a different fucking thing, man.
100%.
Yeah, man. With that, I mean, do you have any like honorable mention shows that might not be like your best show you've ever seen in your life, but like shows that were, you'd be remiss if you didn't bring them up?
Well, I feel like during my like jam band days, I wish I had given this a little bit more thought up front, but because I honestly, yeah, regardless, I think during my jam band days, something about the State Theater in Portland, like every time I would see a band there, I'd just be like, that was a fucking amazing show. Like the crowd is electric, the band is on fire. Like I think it was 2013, I want to say, I saw the Biscuits at the State Theater, and they played they didn't stop a single time, all second set.
Sick.
The whole show was fucking insane. And they did Hot Air Balloon, and like there's like a gap at the end, and the crowd was like going fucking nuts for so long, too long, where Brownstein was like, all right, everybody chill the fuck out, we have to finish the song. And it was just like, but it was like real, it was just the vibe was insane. I also saw around that same time, I saw String Cheese at the State Theater, and they played Live and Let Die as the encore. It was just like an absolute fucking banger, dude. Like, goodness gracious. I'm like, you know, I'm trying to. I've been to more shows than just jam band shows, believe it or not.
Yeah,
Seen a bunch of shit. Oh, wow, this is gonna go into like best show ever territory.
okay, that's
I think,
okay.
but like my favorite drummer, well, one of my favorite drummers is Vinny Colaiuta, who played with Zappa.
Yeah,
I saw him twice with Herbie Hancock.
damn.
And I think, like, you know, there are shows are good for all different types of reasons. I think those are shows that were just like, it really like inspired me musically. It wasn't about like me being high or me being with the homies or like the vibe of the band being great or the jams being great. It was just like a fucking clinic.
Yeah.
And like in the same kind of way that jam band, like the jazz, obviously the jazz world and the improv world at large is all connected. And so they were doing things musically that I had just never seen before, and like doing it live in front of me. So it's different than like listening to a record or even a live record. And then like watching one of the all-time great drummers was just like blowing my mind and made me go like balls deep into jazz and fusion. So like I feel like that was a huge moment for me, like seeing that band, especially Vinny and Herbie, who I think is the greatest musician of all time. He is like the king of music.
Yeah.
You know, like Jacob Collier is doing some really heady shit, but like Herbie's been through every era of music, like pop music, American music, since like bebop, like fucking Miles Davis jazz shit. Through every era, he had a hit and like revolutionized what was going on with that type of music and kind of like guided music in a lot of ways. And what he's doing now is just absurd. I don't know if he did the Headhunters thing recently, like one show, but if you ever get the chance to see him, it's like one of the most mind-blowing experiences ever, you know?
Yeah, man. Yeah, and like speaking of like making choices, like when you think of like when you watch a guy like that on stage making improvisational choices, like musically in the room, you're like, holy shit, like what a genius, you know? And it really is, no matter what art you're in, you really got to go see the greats.
For sure.
You got to go be around
Yeah.
in the same room as the greats, and
Yeah.
because
Like,
it's a lightning bolt.
for sure. Like someone else who's very similar, but also in a way different way is Willie, who I never got to see. But he was also around for all these generations of music and like stayed relevant. And like, it's just fucking his music. I love Willie Nelson. His music like cuts to the core of me. And
Yeah, man.
I'm sad that I missed out, honestly.
I went to Farm Aid in Milwaukee in like 2010 because it was in Milwaukee and that's where I was like living at the time. And it was like sick. The Farm Aid festival's coming through like Miller Park. Let's go see everybody that's going to be there that day. And it was like Dave Matthews Band and, you know, like Nora Jones and, you know, John Cougar Mellencamp. And like, I was really stoked for Neil Young. Neil Young played by himself on stage. And then when Willie Nelson, he had like come out a couple times during the day. And I remember being like, okay, like I'm not a country guy at all. Like you know, and I am like recognize the legend that Willie Nelson is, but I wasn't like so stoked for his set. And we left, like I remember like walking out like almost in silence with my buddies because it was a big epic end of the show and they did some, you know, huge jam with everybody on stage or whatever. But it was like, man, that's a real like cowboy legend musician that we just saw. Oh, another, yeah, just like one of the greats who like when you're in the same room as it, you're like, whoa, this guy's working on like a different level.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, you know, now that I got the gears turning, definitely Primus, you know, which is a hot topic right now.
Yeah.
Which, shout out to my fucking boy Rory from La Special, who I think should be the next drummer for Primus. But
La Special is just like Primus. They are really great. They're fucking like, awesome.
La Special is one of my OG favorite bands.
Yeah.
And then like the first band, so I saw Fish for the first time in 2009, and we'll get to that. But the first band that I like got like deep with and followed around when I was like a young buck was Dopapod.
Sick.
And I feel like it's because I grew up with all these like Berkeley values, and Dopapod kind of has that great mix of like Berkeley values with jam band values or whatever, you know? And so like it just clicked for me and I just fucking was obsessed with Dopapod. I think my best show was probably the years, they played the Paradise in Boston, which is a pretty small club. And it was the first time they had sold it out. So this was probably before they were like hitting the bigger stages, like right before. I remember one of my buddies was like, I'm like, there goes another great band, like moving on to the big time. Like this will be our last time seeing them in a small club. And to me, I was like, oh, like whatever, great for them. But it was truly a special show. And there was a band called Goose Pimp Orchestra. I don't know if, how old are you?
I'm 32. I don't remember.
Me too.
I don't remember the Goose Pimps, but I don't.
Goose Pimp Orchestra, dude.
Orchestra, what?
They were like a horn band that was in the jam scene for a while. Like in the Massachusetts world or like in the Northeast world, there's this festival called Strange Creek in Wormtown. Yeah. It's 2 festivals that happened every year. I used to go there all the time. Saw like Turquoise when they were like starting out. Goose Pimp Orchestra would do like a conga line with the horns through the audience. It was all in like the Dopapod world.
Hell yeah.
They played Dopapod and Goose Pimp played Chocolate Salty Balls, the song that Chef sings in South Park. And to me, it was just like, it had that like, that sense of humor with like amazing music, amazing jams, electric energy, crowd was vibing. Lotus was another band that I was super into. Although I never really like, same with the Biscuits thing. I feel like I dipped my toes into like the trance Jamtronica worlds, but never, always loved it, but never like I always liked the more organic shit better. like the more psychedelic rock and roll kind of world more than that. I think the Biscuits and the Lotus thing was more of like a great hang, great fun time. Biscuits definitely had more like electric jams and improv. But, you know, I haven't seen Lotus since they got Timmy P. And I always loved the breakfast, the psychedelic breakfast.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw the breakfast proper.
Never saw them.
They're so fucking sick, dude. Another band that's just like so musically amazing, but was like an organic jam band. And then it became Kung Fu, which was like a funk band, also sick. But the breakfast was getting deep on some improv, and it was a special thing. It's a bummer that they don't play anymore. Obviously, everybody's kind of spread out now, even from Kung Fu. But I've always loved Tim Palmieri, and he was always really nice to me when I would meet him. He was just like a really good dude. So, which like most of these guys, even now, like I'm obviously meeting way more people. Everybody's fucking solid, like wholesome guys, you know, and girls.
Yeah, yeah, and it feels like I mean, it's all these people who are in search of like free music and in search of organic, like you said, that organic shit, the good improvisational, real things that happen on stage in a room live. And
For
so
sure.
yeah, I feel like you end up meeting a bunch of cool people through that. Like the comedians, like in my world that are down for that type of vibe are always the coolest people. The people who are like improvisers and improvise on stage and aren't so precious with their material, I feel like are usually like it's a pretty chill type of person to be around. Someone who's
Like,
kind of open, you know,
yeah,
to whatever could happen.
like down to earth. I mean, like the Goose guys, you know, like a lot of
Yeah,
people obviously ask me like what the vibe is with the Goose Boys, because you know
yeah,
they're kind of like larger than life at this point.
they're
They're
fucking
like
dudes.
hitting
That's
that
what they are.
level, and they really are just like super down to earth guys. Like immediately when I went to hang for the audition process, it was like just felt like I was just hanging with some normal homies that kind of
Yeah,
had the same goals with their music as I did. So it wasn't like I was like hanging with these big stars with egos at all. That's just the truth. And most of the guys that I've met are like that.
yeah.
And
Getting to hang out that day with you guys in San Diego really took. I mean, like you know, I don't hang out with bands on the day of their show all the time. That's a new thing for me. So I was a little like nervous going in, but you guys are all so uh, regular dudes. You're all just normal. Even just talking with the guys in the band who I haven't talked with yet, or like I'd never met Trevor or talked with him at all, and yeah, everyone's just pretty cool, pretty pretty normal. It's not like you're about to be this huge headlining act in a couple hours. It's like a
for
bunch
sure.
of normal guys,
Yeah.
you know.
And like, yeah, dude, Trevor is a mysterious man. Like his
Yeah,
stage persona is mysterious, but he's like a fucking Zen master. Such a good head on his shoulders. Like truly a kind, great
so
human
nice.
being. He's really smart.
Yeah.
Like the guy is a fucking gem, honestly. And it's funny, like someone came up to me at Mondegreen and was like, I have to ask, like, what's up with the bass player? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, just what's up with him? What's his deal? And I was like, I guess he is kind of mysterious. He doesn't have, like, I don't know. He's got the sunglasses and he's just doing his thing on stage, just like laying it down. So I get it. But in reality, let it be known, he's a fucking amazing human being.
Yeah, just like really very conversational, and like I'll say that. Yeah, I was also surprised. I was like, wow, he was so nice, and
For
we
sure.
chatted for a while. He is kind of like a stoic presence when you're in the audience. You
Yeah.
know, he's got the shades on, he's playing bass, pretty chill,
Yeah.
laying it down. He's not like Flea, you know,
He's not like Flea.
which is like a different like what's up with the bass player, but like
Yeah,
he
for sure.
is a pretty chill vibe. But yeah, all you guys are so nice. It was such a nice day hanging.
Yeah,
Um,
that was a really cool day. You got to see me fucking around as I normally do. I spend my
yeah,
time before shows generally like nervously practicing my ass off, and then I go up to like the crew room or the media room and just fuck around and just bullshit to like blow off some steam. Because like, you know, believe it or not, I'm still like shitting my pants before a lot of these shows. Then when I get on stage, it's like you go into a different world, and I'm not nervous. But before, leading up to things, I mean, I like this weekend we have the show. It's definitely on my mind. It's pretty fucking wild, dude, you know?
It's massive, dude. And I think that doesn't really go away. Like, you've played big shows before. You played with Goose. You know, you've played in big rooms, and you've played in front of lots of people before. And you, at this point, know that once the show gets started, you'll be fine. Even having that knowledge, like from earlier in the week, when you did it earlier in the week, it's still like the day of a show. You're just like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
here we fucking go.
Yeah, dude. It's for like you. I mean, also it's like, you know, I like also one of my routines before a show is like I'll go and stand on the stage before, like when it's empty before sound check, and just be like, it still blows my mind every single show, because like I've been to a lot of shows and at a lot of the venues that we play, and so it's like I'll like look out into the seats or the lawn and be like, that's where I was standing at this fucking insane jam that stuck with me, or like, you know, for whatever show. So it's pretty fucking wild for sure.
It's so wild, and I'm stoked for you, dude. When we just crossed paths really quick at the Sphere for Fish in the spring, like I had just seen you at the Cap, and those were your first shows, and just seeing you like, I'm like, look at this fucking guy. He's on top of the world, man. He's seeing Fish at the Sphere. He just fucking played the Cap with Goose. It's like so sick, man. It's just so sick to watch how this last year has unfolded for you.
For sure. It's fucking wild, dude. I mean,
man,
it's mind blowing. But also another show popped into my head for honorable mention.
Of course.
Fucking I think a super underrated band is Michaela Davis. You know Michaela Davis?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Dude. I don't really know the details, but they were supposed to play Higher Ground in Burlington. Something happened, and they, I think, had to cancel the show, and like ended up playing at Zen Barn, which is like a really small club in the outskirts of Burlington. It's like half an hour away, and the place I play and have played a ton. And so it was like really intimate, and that band fucking is sick. Like I think they played some Dead covers, and their Dead covers are so like authentically late 60s, early 70s vibes in like such a fucking legit way. And then the originals are like, they're catchy, but fresh. You know?
Yeah.
And they're such a tight, creative band, and the harp is fucking amazingly gorgeous. The harp mixed with the pedal steel and the lap steel, it's just like this angelic, beautiful sound that I feel like I've never really heard from a band before, even though like I've heard, like I love Dorothy Ashby, who's like a harp player from the 60s, I think. It's like a jazz funk harp player. And so I've heard like stuff like that before, but that band is fucking killer. And I really hope they start to come up a little bit more than they have.
Yeah, she's so cool. And like, I moving to the West Coast over the last couple of years, I got to see some more Grateful Shred shows, which is, I mean, I love Grateful Shred, and she's been with them every time I've gotten to see them. And yeah, dude, like she laid down like France on the harp with Grateful Shred. I was like, it was unbelievable. And it was at the Troubadour too. And she she had sang a couple songs earlier that night, and then came out with the harp. And yeah, like when have you ever seen that type of presentation of Dead music, like with a fucking harp? Like I mean, so cool. And yeah, I've gotten to see her only with Shred a couple times, so I definitely want to see her band.
Her band they're great. I got to play with them because their drummer threw out his back, and the guy who was running the festival knew that I was a huge fan. He was like, do you want to play with Michaela's band tomorrow at this festival? And I was like, fuck yeah, I do. And they were nice enough to let me just kind of like, I didn't have any time to shed. I kind of just like knew the songs from listening to them and just played. And they're fucking great people, great musicians. Just like they won my heart and allegiance. So every chance I get, I try to like help them out. But also, dude, the Circles Around the Sun record that Michaela did is so fucking sick. Like, just disco, funky. It's like vibey as hell. I listened to that record so many times. If I actually had it on vinyl, I would have wore it out. It was insane.
That's what I was going to say earlier. That's also why Grateful Shred is so sick, because that night especially was a lot of members of Circles Around the Sun, and those guys are just sick. Those guys are so sick. Like you said, very funky.
Yeah.
Very funky.
It's like cool psychedelic disco, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And seeing those guys live, very cool. Very cool vibe they create. It sounds like you've seen a lot of good shows, dude. Hearing about you standing on stage before shows that you're about to play, picking out seats in the crowd that you've sat in, seems like something that everyone has dreamed about doing. Have you been to the venue where your best show ever was yet, or have you?
No.
Not yet?
You know, best show is tough. It's a tough thing to say. I'm gonna pick one. But like, you know, obviously I've had shows that were the best in a bunch of different ways, but I'm going to like, should I bring this up now where my best show was?
Yes. Yeah. And I also, I mean, you said earlier that you wish you would have put more time into it. I think that I've like found that people who, the more they think about what their best show ever is, the more disappointed they are in their own episode. They're like, oh fuck, I left out. But like,
I mean, I think the main thing is like, I don't want to make it out to be like I've only seen jam band shows, because I've seen so many shows that and my memory isn't, 15 years of like bong hits kind of fucked my head up a little bit in terms of recollection. So, like that's really the thing. But Fenway Park 09 Fish. It's my first show. I didn't know anything about Fish. I had listened to The Dead, but like I said, I was raised on black music, and my dad was just like, that shit wasn't in the house. Like so much good music in the house when I was growing up, but never any twangy like rock and roll shit. So like I had to discover no one in my high school even like listened to The Dead or jam bands. And so like it wasn't around me at all. But I found my way to The Dead like when I started smoking weed. And then when I was like, I think I was probably 16 in 09, and this dude who I was on the hockey team with was like, I got these tickets to see Fish. Do you want to cut? Like, if you bring the weed, I'll give you a ticket and you can come with me for free. And I was like, oh, like Fish, like I've heard of them. Are they any good? And he was like, they have this 6-song Farmhouse on the radio. I was like, all right, cool, man. And like I went to this show, and it was just like when I went to that show at Fenway, it felt like I had been sheltered my whole life, because it was like diving into the jam scene, just like 0 to 60 into the jam scene. All of the aspects of the jam scene that I've seen now in so many different environments, but was all there at Fenway. And it blew my fucking mind, like what I heard that night, and the band, like their sense of humor and all the compositions, like related to like the fusion that I grew up on, like the kind of more proggy fusion-y shit that I was familiar with from like 60s and 70s music. And just like the vibe of the show, it definitely changed me and set the course for me to be like, this is what I want to do. So I would say that like all in all, that was my best show, and it was at Fenway. So I got a ways to go before I'm there. That being said, soon after I saw them at SPAC, and we did get to play SPAC, and that was like just words can't describe. It was a fucking dream come true. And I
Yeah.
have been to SPAC so many times, been in a lot of different seats and spots on the lawn at SPAC. So much has happened at Fish SPAC shows for me. It's like there's they used to do like a July 4th run at SPAC every year, which I would always go to. So it's just like it was truly special. And SPAC is just sick.
It's so sick.
Like it's badass. Like even compared to other other like sheds, it's just amazing. The backstage is super nice, and like believe it or not, the backstage isn't always super nice at these big fancy venues.
Right.
But SPAC is just fucking. It was awesome, and I also had like a lot of my friends and family there, and it was just like super special. It's like all of this is happening so fast too. It's hard to like really register it in my mind. And like it's been so constant that I haven't had like a whole lot of time to just sit back and reflect on how amazingly special it truly is. But you know, it was fucking mind-blowing. I mean, in one sense it like feeds into the imposter syndrome of me being like, do I belong here? Like I always just like looked up to this stage. I never once thought I would be on it. And the other part is like, you know, when I was like a kid, the first thing I ever like really saved up and bought when I was probably like 14 wasn't like one of the first electric drum kits that was like the home models. And like I used to play it all the fucking time in my bedroom and would just like close my eyes and picture myself playing on a stage like that. And it sounds cheesy, but it's like is literally my dream and it was coming true. And it was just like when that happens, like it's hard to really like make sense of it. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so much emotion that it's like I'm not gonna just stand here with my job dropped and like crying. That's like what part of me wants to do. But
right.
It's like I got a show to play, so I'm gonna fucking play this rock show. But it really is. It was fucking SPAC was insane.
Man, there's got to be a level of if you do stop to think about it, if you really stop to think about it, it's like, yeah, then you get wrapped up in it. Like all you have just like you guys do with any given like jam or any given show, like all you really have is like to just go and do it. Like not, you know, there's no, you sit around and think about it, then it can pass and all of a sudden you're thinking about what would have happened. But like right now you guys are just on the coolest run and your addition to the band this year has just been, like I said, so fucking cool to watch, man. And very cool to see live too.
Hell yeah. Yeah. It's obviously it's like as of this past tour, I feel like you know, just to be vulnerable, it's like there was a lot of material that I didn't know. And it was all like kind of dropped on me at once. And was like, when I played those cap shows, I was like, I'm sure there are a lot of people in the audience that know these songs better than I do. Thinking about like how well I know Fish songs. Yeah. Like I know every little detail. Like there's been Fish shows where I'll just like get a seat at MSG behind Fishman so I can just watch him do every little detail of these songs. And like there's all these like crowd interactions and stuff like that. It's like thinking about how well I know all the details of Fish and other bands, plenty of other bands. And then like going into those cap shows was like, I knew the songs, but like it was so much and mixed with like the weight, the gravity of the situation. It was just like, holy fucking shit, dude. Like, how am I going to handle this mentally? But then like, you know, the first couple tours, like the improv was always felt good. I've improv for a long time now. And like it clicked immediately with the boys. But yeah, like growing that connection in the improv and getting tighter on the tunes. I feel like this past tour was when I felt like I could go out and do a show and really feel confident about knowing the tunes and like putting a little bit more TLC into the tunes. Cause like, you know, you learn them and then it's like, as you play them, especially with the beauty, the other side of being in a jam band, which people don't focus on as much, is not only the jams, but not having to play the songs the same every time. Like little details, like I'm not going out there like playing along with a backing track and playing the same fills, and there's so much room for creativity, even if we're just playing the song, you know,
Right.
not just in the improv. So it's like when I have like a really good grasp on the tunes, now it's like you can add way more dynamic and expression in the songs. And that felt so fucking good on this past tour. So yeah, like I feel like we're kind of hitting our stride now, and it's been great.
Yeah, there is a little bit of that bell curve, like when you're performing something live, where if you there is like a if you're completely improvised, you're going in completely fresh. It's almost like there's this weight off of your shoulders because you don't really know anyway, so you can just put yourself onto it and make choices just from yourself. But then like the more you need to know the material, it's the same thing in comedy. Like the more you need to know the material, you're kind of like in this mode of like, I need to nail it, but I don't really know it yet. So then it's hard to make it your own because
Yeah,
you're focused on nailing it, and it's not,
exactly.
you're not coming through. And then once you know your material so well, like you know what you're going to be playing so well, now it's like, wow, now I can really make all the choices that I wanted to make originally because I know it, like, because I know it like the back of my hand, and now I can just lay all my choices on top of it.
For
And
sure.
that's like it's a strange balance, because you want to come out like everything's fresh every single time, but you can't. Like you just, you have to learn the stuff, and you have to like really drill it down to like break all the rules within the song, and
Yeah. And like, there's like a lot of things. I think like, it's a lot of bands that are great are guys that play together for a long time. So like there was a level of just like me and the Goose Boys had to play together and for enough time for it to be like we trust each other on stage. We start to learn each other's like tendencies, and then like on this past tour there's like this thing that happens in music when you're like connected with other musicians. It's like I'll play a drum fill that's like the exact same rhythm as Trevor's bass fill, and you're like look at each other like, oh shit, it's like that telepathic connection. And like that's starting to happen a lot more now, and it's just like all these little things, and then also like letting go of some of the like weight of like oh boy, I'm in the spotlight and I'm being judged by the internet, and
right.
that's like a new thing for me, and like coming to terms with that, making my peace with all that shit too. So it's like more than just the music. Obviously there's like the public perception, and like at the end of the day, me just like wanting to play some good music and have fun with it. And I think like there was a lot of other stuff outside the music that potentially had the power to like hinder my ability to just play music, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, you have all these perceived things, when you're coming through music and you're around, like, your groups of, friends who are musicians, you're like, "Maybe do they think I'm good? Like, do they think I suck? Or, like, how do they feel about what I'm working on?" And then when there is a literal internet chat saying all the things that they think about your project that you're working on, your effort that you're putting into this band and stuff, it can almost be like, man, that's like speaking to all of the things that I thought might have been wrong about, what I work on and stuff.
Yeah.
But they're still not like, even though you can see people saying it, it's still not real. You know what I mean? It still doesn't like really affect what you do, like on a day-to-day basis. It's just some guy that's like upset somewhere about
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
like, yeah, it is weird to like, now have like an area where you can go see what people think about what you're working on. It's weird.
Yeah, for sure. And like, yeah, I think it's just a matter of like learning how to interpret that stuff in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And which is just a new challenge that I never expected to like encounter. But I feel like you know, I'm taking it in stride. And now feel like another thing is, I will say, like, shout out to the fucking Goose crowd, because they are some good people,
Yeah.
supportive and loving people, especially in person. Obviously, people are going to talk shit on the internet. I'm not going to stop that. Like, no matter what I do or who I am, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But everybody's been so fucking kind. I mean, from that cap show, there's like the big like welcome Cotter banner on the balcony. Cool. And it was just like it really, like, that really fucking helped. Everyone just being really kind and supportive, instead of like standing there with their arms crossed, like, what do you got, kid? Like, prove yourself to us. Which obviously there was a level of me having to prove myself, and like that's no secret. But to prove myself, I had to like not be focusing on the bullshit. And they totally created an environment for me to thrive. And that's a huge reason why I've been successful entering this band, is because the crowd is the way they are. Like, it's really touching, honestly, how great they've been to me.
Yeah, that Goose crowd is like, they've got huge love for the band and huge love for the effort. And you know, it's scary when there's like change, you know. And so
For sure.
And it's scary for the person who's in the middle of it too. And so like everyone in the room is, in a sense, kind of feeling the same thing. Like,
yeah,
man, I really want this to go well for this guy. And you're like, man, I really want this to go well for this crowd.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
I
for sure.
want these guys to keep feeling this way. And it's that those shows were really special to be at. We got to go to one of them, but it was like you said, it's just a lot of love in the room. People, I got to go to like the second or third one, and people were so stoked about the first two shows. And did you get to go last night? And, you know, talking about it outside. And yeah, I just felt like really lucky to get to see one of those. And then now that's been the vibe through all of the shows. I got to see the 3 California shows you guys did recently. And yeah, it's just, everyone's been like, man, what a cool year this has been. And Goose fans are just, yeah, they're right in their hip pocket, man. They love you guys.
Yeah.
We love you guys. I'm part of the Goose
community. Yeah, dude. It's really cool.
Yeah, dude.
So fucking shout out to them, because it wouldn't be successful without both parties, you know, coming correct.
Yeah, dude. Man, very sick to talk with you, man. I was super. This is not the first interview we've done. For people who are familiar, we did our Hot Ones interview and at the Fish Festival, which was also, it was great to talk to you then, man. That was such a fun interview, even though I was in so much pain. And this was just fun. And I just had a glass of water for this, so that was great.
Hell yeah. Yeah, dude. The Montegreen thing was so fun, dude. Thank you for having me for that. And thank you for having me on this show. I really appreciate it.
So that was my conversation with Cotter Ellis, drummer from Goose. Man, just such a fun dude, such a great guy to talk to, especially if you're a jam band fan. Like, he has just got all the nuggets of the history, especially like the history of, like, you know, guys who are around 30 years old, 32 years old. Like, man, he is bringing up bands that I didn't even hear of, because he's just got such a wealth of knowledge of it. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you liked this one, right now, I also released another brand new episode for free everywhere you get podcasts, with Cotter's good buddy, Nico D'Elisa, who is part of Nico Suave and the Mothership, who played with Goose, who sang Kashmir with Goose at Goosemas in 2024 here. That's a great episode. Check it out. If you're like, man, I can't just do 2 episodes. I need the whole new season. I need all of season 4 right now. That's all out on the Patreon. Become a $4 member per month, and you'll have access to the entire new season. It doesn't have the cool intros and outros like the regular episodes have, just because I try to do these kind of like right before and the episode comes out. So at least something is current about the episode. The super current intro and outro that you've just heard from me. Those are not a part of the Patreon episodes. You just cut right to the jams, baby. You just get right to the combos. If you listened or watched this on YouTube, please give us a subscribe on YouTube. You'll get the info right when the new episodes come out. You can be the first to watch and comment on the new episodes. If you're liking these episodes, go ahead and comment on them. That really helps. Rate us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That really helps. Just get it out to the masses and help with the algorithm of it all. But until next time, guys, have a great show.